The Academy Awards are considered one of the most prestigious awards in the world of cinema. However, it is also known for being a highly controversial award ceremony every year. When some films, actors, or directors don't get the awards they deserve, fans and movie critics are baffled. In this video, we take a look at some of the films that have been recognized as great masterpieces in the history of the Oscars, but failed to win an award or lost unexpectedly. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, 2001, A Space Odyssey is considered a groundbreaking masterpiece of science fiction cinema, yet it was largely ignored by the Academy. With its deep philosophical structure questioning the place of humanity in the universe, its extraordinary visual effects and innovative cinematic language, Kubrick's film has etched its name in the history of cinema with golden letters. However, it only won the Best Visual Effects Award at the Oscars. More surprisingly, Kubrick was not even nominated in the Best Director category. This caused great surprise among film critics and fans and was considered one of the biggest injustices in Oscar history. Similarly, another of Kubrick's masterpieces, A Clockwork Orange, was a huge disappointment. Released in 1971, the film was a provocative production set in a dystopian future and exploring themes of violence, morality, and free will. Despite its bold narrative and visual style, the film was largely overlooked at the Oscars due to its violent content and social criticism. Although it was nominated in categories such as Best Picture and Best Director, its failure to win an award was seen as a continuation of Kubrick's Oscar misfortunes. Perhaps one of the greatest injustices in Oscar history has been done to Citizen Kane, directed by Orson Welles. Released in 1941, this film is often referred to as the greatest film of all time by film critics. Orson Welles was both the director and the lead actor in this film, and created a revolutionary work in terms of cinematic language. However, although Citizen Kane was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, it only won the Best Original Screenplay Award. It is believed that the campaign against the film by media magnate William Randolph Hearst at the time put pressure on the Academy, which is why Citizen Kane was deprived of awards. Considering that the film was groundbreaking, both technically and in terms of narrative style, this loss at the Oscars is considered a great disappointment. Quentin Tarantino's 1994 film Pulp Fiction is another unforgettable loss in Oscar history. Notable for Tarantino's unique dialogues, non-linear narrative style, and dark humor, this film had a great impact on modern cinema. However, at the Oscars in 1994, Pulp Fiction lost the award to Forrest Gump, despite being the heavy favorite for Best Picture. The Academy rewarded Forrest Gump, a traditional and emotional success story, while ignoring Pulp Fiction's more stylized and darker narrative. In 1994, another movie that left its mark on Oscar history was The Shawshank Redemption. Directed by Frank Darabont, this movie has been one of the masterpieces that returned empty-handed from the Oscar night, despite being the highest-rated movie on IMDb for many years. Although The Shawshank Redemption was nominated for 7 Oscars in 1994, it failed to win an award in any category. This was a powerful movie about the human search for hope and freedom. However, its chances were diminished because it competed in the same year with 2 giant rivals such as Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction. Another loss that caused great controversy in Oscar history is Saving Private Ryan, directed by Steven Spielberg. This film is considered a turning point in war cinema, especially with the Omaha beach landing scene in the opening scene. Although Spielberg won the Best Director award for this film, the Best Picture award surprisingly went to Shakespeare in Love. This decision is considered one of the biggest controversies in Oscar history. It was claimed that Harvey Weinstein, the producer of Shakespeare in Love, had campaigned intensely for the movie and had a great influence on the Academy members. Directed by Martin Scorsese, Raging Bull is considered one of the best biographical films in cinema history. Robert De Niro's portrayal of boxer Jake LaMotta is one of the most iconic performances in De Niro's career. However, at the Academy Awards in 1980, Raging Bull lost the Best Picture award to Ordinary People. This loss is seen as part of Scorsese's long struggle with the Oscars. It was only in 2006 that Scorsese was able to satisfy this longing by winning the Best Director award for The Departed. Alfred Hitchcock, considered one of the greatest directors in the history of cinema, has also suffered great injustice at the Oscars. Vertigo is considered one of Hitchcock's greatest masterpieces. A benchmark in terms of suspense and psychological cinema, it is today considered one of the best films in the history of cinema. However, it was largely ignored at the Oscars in 1958 and did not win any awards. Although Hitchcock was nominated for an Oscar several times throughout his career, he never won the Best Director award. Apocalypse Now, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, is one of the most impressive films about the Vietnam War. This film, which deals with the senselessness of war and the dark side of humanity, is considered one of the greatest masterpieces in the history of cinema. However, despite being considered a big favorite in 1979, it lost the Best Picture award to Kramer vs. Kramer. This loss is considered one of the biggest surprises in Oscar history. Although Apocalypse Now showcased Coppola's creative genius and mastery of the art of cinema, the Academy chose to award a more conventional family drama that year. One of the biggest reasons for There Will Be Blood not winning the Oscar was the intense competition in 2007. The film had to compete against a masterpiece like No Country for Old Men in the same year, causing a split between critics and moviegoers. The Coen brothers' minimalist narrative and take on the collapse of the American dream was more accepted by the Academy. There Will Be Blood, on the other hand, presented a much darker, bleak and individual story of destruction. The character of Daniel Plainview was a harsh portrayal of greed and the darker side of humanity. Given the Academy's tendency to reward more hopeful or hero-centered stories, it was not surprising that such a dark character in film was not rewarded. Also, Paul Thomas Anderson's directorial style, while appreciated in the cinematic world, may not have appealed to everyone with its slow pace and in-depth character analysis. However, the film's technical achievements and Daniel Day-Lewis's outstanding performance could not be overlooked. Day-Lewis made cinematic history by winning the Best Actor award. The movie's soundtrack was also highly acclaimed, with Johnny Greenwood's impressive compositions. However, the narrative structure of No Country for Old Men, which appealed to a wider audience, overpowered the film, and There Will Be Blood lost the Best Picture award. The failure of Chinatown to win an Oscar is a complex situation based on many factors. This neo-noir classic, directed by Roman Polanski, was nominated in 11 categories that year. However, in the same year, it was up against a strong competitor in The Godfather Part 2, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola's film is considered one of the most iconic productions in cinema history and won both Best Picture and Best Director. However, even though Chinatown was ahead of its time, some critics may have felt that the pacing of the film was not impressive enough for the Oscar jury. So, even though the movie had a huge cultural impact over time, Academy members gave more weight to Coppola's film at the time. Also, the ending of Chinatown was dark and bleak, whereas The Godfather Part 2 was both tragic and epic, and the Academy is generally known to favor epic stories. Although Chinatown succeeded in modernizing the film noir genre, it may have had a less emotional impact than other dramatic productions that attracted the Academy's attention. The failure of Stanley Kubrick's 1975 film Barry Lyndon to win an Oscar is due to the cinematic dynamics of the period and the unique structure of the film. As a director who attached great importance to visual aesthetics in cinema, Kubrick's Barry Lyndon was characterized by the use of natural light, painting-like frames, and meticulous art direction that reflected the spirit of the period. While the film was technically outstanding, its story and slower pacing and epic nature may have alienated some viewers and Academy members. Barry Lyndon focuses on the social structure of an era rather than the emotional world of the characters, which was a disadvantage for the Academy, which prefers more emotional and character-driven stories. That same year, a big favorite like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was in the running. This film attracted more attention from the Academy because of its character-driven narrative and social messages. Kubrick's style did not always resonate with mainstream audiences and Academy members. While more traditional narrative forms and dramatic structures were more prominent at the Oscars at the time, Kubrick's visual genius and artistic vision, although innovative, were not always recognized in the awards. Nevertheless, the film was a major technical success, winning a total of 4 Oscars, including Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Soundtrack. The fact that The Social Network, directed by David Fincher, did not win an Oscar is due to the fact that the competition in the world of cinema that year was quite high, and the Academy's preferences were shaped in different directions. The film brought the story of the founding of Facebook to the big screen with an impressive screenplay, strong acting, and Fincher's meticulous direction. Aaron Sorkin's dialogues and narrative style in particular were highly praised. However, in the same year, The King's Speech, directed by Tom Hooper, was also in the Oscar race, and it was a movie that fully met the Academy's interest in historical dramas. While The King's Speech presented a more traditional, emotional, and inspiring story, The Social Network highlighted the cold and sometimes brutal aspects of the tech world. The Academy usually favors more personal and dramatic narratives, and The King's Speech may have won the hearts of the jury in this sense. Although The Social Network was critically acclaimed, it did not win Best Picture because it competed in a year when the Academy tends to favor more traditional and emotional films. However, it was still a significant success, winning 3 Oscars for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Editing, and Best Soundtrack. The biggest reason why Goodfellas failed to win an Oscar was its strong rival for Best Picture in 1990, Dances with Wolves. Directed by Kevin Costner, the film presented a more emotional and epic narrative of Native American life that appealed to Western audiences. The Academy usually leans more towards traditional narratives and large-scale epics. Goodfellas, on the other hand, was darker, fast-paced, and focused on the world of crime. Martin Scorsese's film, which has left its mark on the history of cinema, depicted gangster life in a striking and stylized way, but its harsh language, scenes of violence, and morally questioning structure were far from the safe options preferred by the Academy. Goodfellas also presented a more realistic and striking story, which may have offended Academy members who prefer Hollywood's more optimistic and traditional narratives. In addition, the fact that Kevin Costner had such a great success in his directorial debut, and that Dances with Wolves was both a commercial and critical success, led to the award. Yes, I think I told you detailed information about the best movies that did not win the Oscar award. So which movie is your favorite among these movies? I would be glad if you indicate in the comments. You can also write me your ideas for video content in the comments. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you liked it, you can like my video. Until I see you in my next videos.